show of hands, how many folks are in the media business? Okay, any marketers in the room? Handful? Okay, and I guess everyone else is other? Okay. So a little bit about who I am and what I do. So Edelman is the world's largest public relations firm. We have 5,000 employees in roughly 70 offices around the world. My job is to think about media and content consumption, how that's changing on a day-to-day basis, and to kind of be an outside-in point of view on that to our clients and our teams on what that dynamic is like. It's obviously the future of the media business and how consumption is changing is just critically important to us and our work. The things I do are kind of threefold. One is one-third of what I do is research, both original research as well as kind of secondary research. Second is I'm an advisor to our clients and our staff, and then third is stuff like this, like today. So what I'm going to talk about is a view of the media ecosystem from a marketing point of view. So looking at the agenda, a lot of what you heard today from experts, from authors, was more, I think, from a technology-centric point of view and more from a publisher perspective. What I'm going to talk about is more from the marketing side and how we kind of see things shaking out. My talk today is called Communicating in Constellations. The thing that we should all be worrying about is that there's too much content and there's not enough time. So those of you who are in the media business, all of us, we're increasingly fighting for the same attention span. 60% of all media consumption now is mobile, and 7 out of the top 10 most used apps are controlled by 2 companies, Google and Facebook. So all roads go through those tunnels. And so I think it's going to be much harder in the years ahead, whether we're on the marketing side or the media side or anybody who's a content creator, to get our message across. So the metaphor I use is that it's like looking up in the sky at night and you see all these stars. The way we try to react is to outshine our competition. We try to be the brightest, shiniest object in the sky every night. In marketing, people spend a lot of money on TV, they spend a lot of money on Super Bowl ads, and they try to outshine their competition. Everybody wants to be the next Oreo cookie. The media companies are trying to outshine each other and trying to do more. That's not sustainable. And that's not sustainable because there's just going to be increased competition. So what we're encouraging our clients to do is to have systems thinking. And that's what I encourage publishers to do, if you're willing to take advice from me, is to see things holistically with a systematic point of view. Because it's not just about you and it's not just about your content. It's about what happens to that content and what is the water like and how do you make sure that your boat can float across the ocean. And I think it's about kind of connecting dots. It's about not necessarily working harder, it's about working smarter and making sure that all the things that you do, at least from a marketing point of view, connect up. Because if you look at marketing organizations, they have people who do creative, they have people who do paid, they have people who do media buying, they have people who do PR, they have people who do digital. Consumer doesn't care about that. Consumer sees things as one, and increasingly they see it through kind of 1 or 2 different apps, which is Facebook and Google apps, including YouTube. So it's about connecting the dots and creating a constellation so that your audiences see your story no matter where. They see your story in different places and they connect the dots that it's one narrative. That's what we're going to be doing. There's media fragmentation. We have to try to reassemble the narrative through kind of smart marketing and smart communications. And we know the lesson from grade school, right? You look up in the sky, you see all these stars. Well, if you find 3 stars in Orion's belt, you find a great story. That's what marketing and media is like now. It's about putting up a great story in different places, but doing so in a very connected fashion so that people get the narrative, because I guarantee you they won't. It's way too fragmented. So what does that look like practically? How does that work? Well, again, this is from a marketing point of view. I know some of you are startups and you're trying to market your companies, and I think this applies to you hopefully as well. A few years ago, we came up with a framework to think about the media environment. And what we did was we put publishers in different buckets, not so much based on ownership, but based on behaviors. So we have the traditional bucket, which are household names that we grew up with, the Daily News, the CNNs of the world, the New York Times, etc. There's the hybrid media. We call them hybrid because they're half digitally native and they're half traditional. This is BuzzFeed, Mashable, TechCrunch, Gizmodo, Deadspin, and so forth. There is owned media, corporation or brand as media company, and then there is social media. And we're saying that we're encouraging our clients to think about this ecosystem holistically and how a narrative can traverse all four of these different spheres with enough repetition to change minds and change behaviors. At the center, we think what's pivotal to that is a search mindset, a focus on visual content, and also increasingly a focus on using paid in new and different ways. Some things that we think about that are kind of connective tissue that can amplify messages in this environment where there's too much content and not enough time is, one, thinking very deeply about digital discoverability. Social media is the primary pathway to information now. So we think very deeply about how that's impacting journalism. We have surveyed 250 journalists, and we asked them, are you feeling more pressure to get your story shared? And 76% of them said yes. So how is that changing storytelling? What does that mean from a content discoverability? These are the kinds of things that we think about in our business because you're thinking about it in your business, and if we're not reflecting that, then we're not going to be telling our stories in the right way. So how you create a social by design strategy to your content, and this is what BuzzFeed and others have done so well, is going to be pivotal for making sure your content's more discoverable. We also surveyed journalists and we said, what are you doing to make your content more discoverable in social media? And we found out that number one was using imagery, but number two was looking at trending topics and how they're reacting and writing about those trending topics in real time. You can find this full data set on our website. We've published this and with a perspective too on shareability. So thinking about digital discoverability and how you make sure that your content is connected up to trending topics, how it's connecting up to the kind of algorithmic changes that Facebook and Google are making is going to be pivotal for discoverability. And it's happening in the marketing world too. When we do content for our clients, we don't just create PDFs and rich authoritative content, we actually create infographics that are animated in a way that is social by design. So we tell stories in two styles, and I think that's what increasingly all content creators have to do as well, because there are a lot of people who still want to go deep into a topic. Second, we're seeing more and more of our clients want to do their own original content. If it fills an information void, if it fills a need, and you can do it in a compelling way in a human voice, and ideally if you're high interest or you're laddering to some sort of high interest, there's not a lot to lose. Whereas with media companies are obviously gunning for advertising revenues, the brands are willing to actually invest and create content themselves, and in some cases be a curator of content. Microsoft is a great example of that. They have this site called Microsoft Stories, and they tell the stories of their employees in a human voice, with video, with photography, and it's feature-style storytelling. And I can tell you that this site gets referenced by the press all the time. So that's a win for them. A win for them is not so much, okay, did people come to our site? A win for them is we're influencing conversations off-site. So that's one area that we see brands actually investing more of, and we'll see more of that in the years ahead. Another thing that we're seeing brands do is partner up with people who have surface area. So the YouTube, Vine, Instagram, Tumblr creator community is extremely influential. There have been studies that have been done that show that people under 30 respect YouTube celebrities more than they respect mainstream celebrities. And brands are actually partnering up with these creators because they have tremendous distribution power. If there's one theme that comes across from my talk today, it's distribution-centric thinking. I think a lot of folks in the content community, whether it be in the marketing community or the media community, are focused on the art. There's not enough focus on the science. What happens to content when it leaves the creator and how it flows to the consumer, and the role that the algorithms play. Algorithms are the new intermediaries for everybody in this room. And that's a hard thing because, I don't know about you, but I wasn't a math major. So, that's why I'm in, PR. God bless the PR profession. It's not known for its concentration of math majors. This is indicative of the changes that we now all live in the ecosystem that's around us. Third, more and more, and again, this is a marketing-centric point of view, but we're seeing it on the publishing side too, that paid media is becoming more important than ever. Absolutely becoming more important than ever for amplification. because messages, great content every day will not be seen by audiences because it didn't have any paid support behind it. So the media companies are increasingly, I'm seeing it, they're buying up traffic for the native advertising and sponsored content work. We're encouraging our clients to leverage technologies like content syndication, like Outbrain and Taboola and Google ads and Facebook ads so that content's more visible. You have to have paid now as part of a content strategy, whether you're, I think, a media owner or you're a marketer, because the content will not be visible otherwise. And we're leveraging that. We're also very intrigued by native advertising and sponsored content. We're a believer in it. We think that it can be done well. We think that it can amplify a message. We think that it's also a viable way for the media companies to make money. However, if the quality is not there and the respect for the audience is not there, it's not going to work. And I think that is where we're seeing some cracks in whether or not this is going to be a viable way for media companies to monetize going forward. Briefly, we studied this. We partnered with the IAB. We surveyed 5,000 people, and we said, what's it going to take for native advertising to work as a business model? We found out that audiences are fed up with display ads in particular. They do not like display ads. They want ads that are narrative in nature. We found, it's hard to read, but we found out that native advertising, when it's in feed, is way more viable than banner ads, way more viable than video, more viable than pop-ups, of course, in terms of its relevancy in terms of its appeal and its ability to be unintrusive. And further, we found out that brands can see a lift by 33% if they partner with great media brands. And the publishers, though, have to get this right. The publishers have to partner with premium advertisers, well-known household names, if they want native advertising to work. It's not going to work from the consumer point of view for brands that they haven't heard of. And they also can see an increase in favorability by 50%. You can find this full research on the consumer view of native advertising on our site or on the IAB website. Again, this is about connective storytelling. It's about doing a lot of different things around a theme with algorithms in mind to make sure your message gets heard. GE is a company that does that extraordinarily well. They do a lot of different things around technology and innovation, whether it be in social media, whether it be media partnerships, whether it be on their own site, whether they be funding television shows, which they just announced the other day. They're doing a lot of different things that connect up, and they know that they are doing it in a way that's going to span the ecosystem and change minds and behaviors. They have to. Another company that does that well, I think, is Unilever. And I should disclose that these are all client of ours. We do not necessarily do all this work. Again, they create content like Dove Sketches that starts a conversation, generates earned media, has paid support behind it. So what I want to leave you with is, again, what inspires me to think about systems thinking, and I have this hanging up in my cube. This is an image that Walt Disney drew in 1957. Was that my clock? It sounded more like the fire, like the fire detector in my house, smoke detector. So this is an image that Walt Disney drew in 1957, and he saw how everything that they do connects to everything else. How the filmed content can drive awareness for what's in the parks. How the parks can drive merchandise sales. How the merchandise sales drives sales for comic books. If you look at Walt Disney today as a corporation, you see this, right? You see Frozen the movie. You're buying the food in the store. You're buying the tchotchkes. You're going on the ride. You're singing the songs, and you remember that it's synergy. And content synergy is going to be more critical than ever in this era of fragmentation. And so I'm not so interested in the big things here. I'm interested in the lines. Draw the lines between the different things that you do as a publisher or as a marketer to make sure you're visible. Because that's what's going to be required, and that's what I mean by communicating in constellations. So I think I just finished on time. There's a lot there, so that's where you find me if you need. Do we have time for questions? Okay. One question. Oh, and I'm nervous. Previous panelist.
I have a question. I have a question for you on the evolution of native into content marketing. Are marketers starting to budget for it? Do they recognize it as a separate type of advertising that has to be budgeted for, just like television, et cetera, or is it still experiment time?
I think they are starting to budget for it, but I think that some of them may be remiss in really realizing what it takes to build an audience now. If the companies that you're investing in, or the companies that you used to work for, are killing each other to try to get every little page view they can get, and they're spending paid to increase, to try to get traffic, I think the client-side marketers are not aware of what it takes to go in and do that well, both from a and I think there's a lot of focus on the art, not enough on the science. But I'm seeing budgets now come in for this because why? Well, Facebook, and the social media channels became completely a paid game. The publishers are creating new opportunities, and they're going and selling to the marketers and saying, "Hey, you know what? You want to do a sponsored post with the New York Times? We have a host studio that can do that." The agencies' swim lanes are breaking up between all the different firms, and content's kind of a unifier, so there's some survival instincts by some of the agencies to drive that and sell that, making some clients believe. But yeah, I think the money's starting to come in for that now. But I'm a believer that content's going to be more of a means to an end than it's going to be an end to an end.